Welcome back to our 7th episode of the Scientific Spirituals. And today we'll be discussing a biblical figure, uh, not only biblical in the sense of Christianity, but also his name changes during different histories of cultures. For the Babylonian, Assyrian empires, that's the Sumerian culture to which the original stories derived. So today we will be discussing Nimrod. Nimrod and his importance to today's time and his relevance in the Bible, and of course his origin and tradition of where his story truly comes from and his lineage as said to be from prior history. I want to start with Nimrod and importance to him. First of all, let me recap for anybody that hasn't watched the last episode, which was about Constantine. And Constantine, if you don't know, was a Roman emperor who pretty much influenced the Christian Catholic religion that we have today due to whatever reasons, political or otherwise, to influence himself into a situation that now will it cultivated the world from previous pagan religions to the Judaism of the Torah and the believers of that, and other cultural and religions as well, is especially that of the maverick Yahshua's religion. So from that matter, we have to tie in the importance of what he did, and then just being in this figure such as Nimrod or others such as Enoch, or even going back before Enoch or even Adam, the so-called original man, and accounts of what these stories have to say in detail about them. It gives a broader perspective of what we're dealing with. But to keep it on layman terms, for people to follow the breadcrumbs, I want to talk about Nimrod in a biblical standing from the Bible point of view, whether that be from your Catholic Bible or your if you're Hebrew, your Torah, or the New Testament. Of course, it doesn't matter the translation, because of course we all have a different translation, which is why I'm making these points to make a clear standing on what it is that we have took for fact of Christianity and what we should take fact for history. Not to say that I'm trying to step on anybody's religious belief. Again, I have to advise that, because the point of this is not to convert people from your faith or your religion. It's to educate you on it, at least to know the facts on how it came to be and why it is, versus you accepting that it just is and this is what it is without knowing or even caring where it came from. So, when we look at Nimrod in the story of the Tower of Babel, of course you have little to nothing about him at all, because like most of the things in the Bible, they have been summarized or fabricated or taken out altogether, and we've been given just a placement of wording on the account of what people have said or what is said to be there. So in the Tower of Babel, a scripture, of course, in Genesis, where it is said that the whole world was of one kind and one speaking tongue, and everybody pretty much was on the same page. And to wrap it up, not to like generalize it, because you can go read it for yourself, the Tower of Babel. But in a quick summary of what's going on, the world was united, and it depends on what book you read. You get different descriptions on that united. Like, there is no inference on it being a negative or an evil thing in the book, my point. But of course, when it's being taught to people orally tradition, when you start to interpret on your own terms, people are telling you that this was evil. It is evil, or Nimrod was evil, or if they don't even mention Nimrod, they just say the Tower of Babel was evil because people was not listening to God, they will say. Again, if you follow my other episodes, you would know my point about who and what the God would be that they so-called are saying you're not listening to, and what that would have in terms to be with what's going on right here in the Bible. So in terms of what's going on in the Bible, in the Tower of Babel, it says that the whole world was working as one. They spoke of one language. And God and the us, which is another episode that I will be furthering into, because it's a big deal to ask who is the us that's always been referred to in the Old Testament when they're referring to God doing anything concerning mankind's influence and direction. He then states, let us go down. Come, first of all, let me slow down. He says, God and the us, look and see what man does when they work together and speak of one language. Nothing can be stopped from them. Nothing can be out of their reach. Come, let us go down and confuse their language. Scatter them abroad all over the face of the earth. Now, of course, when you ask your pastor or when you read this scripture to yourself, some people don't even really deep into it, or they just say, well, oh yeah, it was wrong because them people's evil. They wasn't listening to God. They was disobeying God. God didn't want that. But when you read between the lines of what's being here, it doesn't say anything about God being disturbed by this in any manner other than look what mankind can do once they work together. It didn't necessarily emphasize evil at all. That's what people interpret and put on it themselves. So my thing was looking into this in a different stance, because in this book, they don't even mention that this was Nimrod's doing or any one man, because I know that it comes from an ancient or older history, which is the Sumerians, and it comes from the creation of holy tablets, or some people will call the Epic of English. And in that, you get the story of Gilgamesh. And that's a whole different story in itself that we will further go into. But this character Gilgamesh is pretty much the prototype for all these type of figures, such as Nimrod, if you will. And we will go through Nimrod's history in just a second. Basically emphasizing that these people were half human, half God. And they rung like that. They ring when they was a king or whatever, they would be a conqueror or a dominator. And then they have these abilities to be very godlike and then very manlike. Much like if you read into the Old Testament, the figure of the Old Testament. So in reference to the Tower of Babel, it was very interesting to me that God felt so threatened by man when they worked together, wrong or right, regardless of that matter, that they can't achieve something such as building a tower. And we can get into what that tower was, whether that be a spaceship, whether that been a portal, whether that been a structure high enough so that the earth don't flood the cities no more. We can get into that debate. The point needs to be seen that it was something done that God himself in the us, whether that be his angels, whether that be other gods, whatever, we'll get into the us for those who can go that deep, was so disturbed by these matters that they came down from outer space or heaven, whatever you subscribe to, physically, and came and moved man and separated them, confused their languages, scattered them abroad on purpose. Now, this would be called extraterrestrial intervention in any other book or any other interpretation or breakdown. But for layman terms, they say don't think of this like physical, it's spiritual, mental. Okay, I'll buy that. So explain it. How does it make sense in the mental and physical? If God himself separated mankind and caused this, then would that not be the reason why we have such confusion in this sense, in the way that it's portrayed in the Bible? For those that can keep up. Now, if you're taking a moment to digest what I'm telling you and you can see what I'm saying, let's further go into what would you do given the chance of being in power like a Nimrod or Trump or anybody who has wielded power in a kingship state in the influence of the people. Now, I don't compare Trump to Nimrod, and I'm not saying Nimrod is evil based off of what's been read or recorded about him. Because, again, to do a quick review about Nimrod, In the biblical sense, Nimrod is said to be the son of Cush, who is an ancient man, probably close back to like Atom, the original man, who was made in the sense of the Cushites of Africa tribe. And so Cush can also be traced back to some very deep-rooted ancient things. So if you subscribe to that, then he has a lineage of being quote-unquote melanated, strong people. And so Nimrod also was given a gift of his power-like bracelet that was given down to him from Enoch and prior people that we'll discuss later on in different times. That, you know, again, this is all, I guess you would call Orthodox Christianity type things, because Western Christianity does not subscribe to it. So, like the Book of Enoch, which was taken out during the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, under Constantine, I may add. But before then, it was accepted as part of the canonical biblical books. And along with that story and others, such as the story of Nimrod being a tyrant king, and even so going so forth as tying him to being the grandson of Noah and having connections to that lineage, Lamech, and so forth. And we can see that Nimrod, like Gilgamesh, like Samson, like Enoch, Adolpha, if you will, Joshua, Moses, Abraham, are all strong-minded, militant, king-like figure men who all have a destiny that would cause them to otherwise seem berserk, crazy, mentally insane, because they're working on a frequency of mental thought that does not register with the common person. Now, Nimrod was said to be in various religions, also same way blessed by these same gods. He was given his power. He was given this dominance over man to even be able to unite the world. Some historians say through bloodshed and fear. Others say through an ideology of teaching man to be more than themselves, to ravel themselves not just to God, but to see themselves as gods. And this caused a threat to those powers to be. Mind you, if you read and follow the videos, you understand what I'm saying, because again, I have to emphasize this for the person who does not understand the separation of the term God and gods, the creator, and the devils. Now, in this episode, I would want you to understand that the complexity of understanding this ancient text would be those who follow and read the holy tablets, or even subscribe to the Anunnaki. Or if you are a biblical person, for any book that's, you know, aligned to the monolithic connection of Abraham's faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So you understand that there is a connection between the divine, the extraterrestrial, and the so-called human or man. And you can't ignore the facts beyond how your history tells you these things are fashioned. Each one of these religions has extraterrestrial beings called angels, who are unidentified in the sense of even studying them now, but are the connection to each and every one of these things and stories. Dreams, the dependence on dreams and the spirituality of dreams is everything in the book about us trusting these words and faiths, even faith, all based in this reading and studying of books that we have lacked a history that we know history can be changed and is changed depending on the person telling the story. We owe it to ourselves to do the research and follow that his story down to the best of what we can get to. That may not be perfect, but again, what in life, what is. Now, in connection to what a Nimrod would do today, It's two ways. There's always going to be a Nimrod. We have to better put what a Nimrod would be for us as a collective, as collecting the whole human race as one, I would say. How would our mental and our conscious understanding of one another, faiths, religions, walk of life, expectations, doubts, disappointments, how could this all be better understood, overstood by just merely having a conversation on a conscious that allows both of us to see each other beyond this physical perception? Whether that be our physical makeup, our status or social class background, our monetary issues, or even our, criminal backgrounds that can be somewhat justified unfair in a lot of cases of good people who get painted and stained with a horrible, horrible mindset that just plagues the world to continually to put these divisions on us as good as bad people. Now, there are things that are separating, that are just pure evil, that no one can really justify, such as trying to tamper with the word of creation, or making yourself to be the part of the word of creation and influencing that on the level of keeping other people's down, or harming the innocent in any fashion. Pure evil things that cannot be tolerated in any measure of mental acceptance, because we shouldn't let that foster in our mental in the first place. So you attack those things by being aware of the many things that tell you what we are mentally living in. What is your mental break? What do you do when you get saddened? What do you do when you get hurt? What do you do when you feel, in an unsafe zone? A lot of people say, I pray to God, I go to God, of course. Now, for those who still have a feeling of not feeling that, this is what I offer to you. Read your instructional, spiritual guidance book. Study the figures, the stories that are portrayed in it. Find a connection to what that has to do with you. Research it in real life. Research how it plays out. Research the history of that. See how this has a bigger and more connecting point that I guarantee you will lead you to a better understanding of where you are right now. Now, the point I want to make about how Nimrod can be not just for men, but for women, is that we are one. So where there was a Nimrod running the world, there was some woman behind him, I'm sure. And he came from a goddess, of course. And goddess being in turn means a higher conscious woman, in whatever way you want to put that. For biblical matters, let's just say he was real. And him being a real man, just like much today, he had a mother. And the influence of that mother had to be just as strong, if not strong, depending on who the father was. So when we got Nimrod females out here now, you also will power. You also will control. You can also real respect to your will, depending on what you know, how you maneuvering your way in the world, just like each of us is. So any man thinking they have an up on the women out here now because, hey, if you ain't been paying attention, they slowly changing the game for the ropes. And I don't say that in a negative manner. I mean that there are women who are awakening to their conscious levels of that their being higher selves means that they don't have to be submitted to anybody's illogical thinking or limited thinking that perceives them to be something that they're not. Who are you to judge that? Who are you to stop that? And in that manner, Nimrod would have been influencing you in some manner, because now you have taken not just your will into your life, but you're taking action. You don't take away from believing in God. I'm not advocating that. What I'm saying is understand the terms of what you're saying. The Creator is love, unconditional, unidentified, bodied, can be and not be at all, is, can't be genderfied, can't be even put in the terms to use such as the Creator. But it is, for the lack of a better term for human understanding. There is a higher source of power of being, a benevolence that is in each and every one of us, that makes us and is all. And if you can't understand that and connect that to how there can be many gods, and how gods can turn to devils, and how angels can turn to devils, and how manifestation of one makes two. But there is only one. Then you also have a separation, an illusion, a disunderstanding of what the reality is that we live. Now that, my friends, was what Nimrod could have attempted to do, which then made gods and the God come down and say, hey, look what mankind did when they worked together. We can't allow that. Now, why would that be a bad thing then and still today when we need to work together? Somebody would say, hey, let's look at the Bible. Well, look what the Bible said when people work together. And it didn't say that they worked together in a negative way that people are going to tell you it did. That's why I'm telling you to read the Bible and tell you what it says. Now, this isn't a religious debate. It's a spiritual connection from one open soul to the next to try to gather truth and to lead us to a better understanding tomorrow. I am the scientific spiritualist, and I appreciate you tuning in. Hope you learned a thing or two. Appreciate it.